New Toyota Tacoma front bumper considerations. Make sure you watch this video before you whip out that credit card. Well, good afternoon everybody, and welcome back to Robmotive. These are a few new Toyota Tacoma front bumper considerations, things that you should think about before you drop a dime on that new bumper. Real quick, before we get into it, if you haven't before, make sure you smash that subscribe button and click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. So, what am I talking about? Let's get into it. You know, I've been thinking about putting a new front bumper on my Tacoma, but before I do that, I've been trying to think of things that will affect my decision. You know, I've done other mods on the truck, and I've got to say, sometimes I jump the gun a little quick and run out and buy something new or get online and give them my credit card before I really think it all the way through. So I thought this might help out some folks if you're considering a new front bumper for your Tacoma. Just a few considerations before you go ahead and make that purchase. Number one, well, obviously, we got to talk about weight. You know, if you put a new front bumper on the truck, it's going to add some weight to the front of the truck. It might pull it down a little bit. This gap, this rake, might get even a little bit worse. Now, I did a whole video on what you should consider before you lift your truck, so I'm not going to go into great detail on that, but just make sure that you take into account the amount of weight that you're going to add to the front of the truck and how it's going to affect what you've got going on. Maybe with bigger tires, maybe you could be creating a rub, who knows. Number two, and this kind of goes right along with weight, and that is, are you buying a steel or an aluminum front bumper? Now, I would suggest, unless you're going to be running into things with it, that you always buy aluminum. I mean, it's less weight, obviously. It's easier to install, particularly if you're doing it yourself. You don't have to manhandle that big, heavy steel bumper. But it's probably going to cost you a little bit more money. From what I've seen out there, the aluminum bumpers are more costly than the steel bumpers. So if you're a little strapped for cash, or maybe you just don't want to spend quite as much, you still might want to go the steel route. All personal situation and preference, of course. Next up, the lovely TSS Sensor. You know, this thing that's located right behind this window here, obviously you don't want to put something on that's going to block that, because if you do, you're going to have TSS sensor problems. You're going to get errors on the screen. You're not going to be happy. And I'm really more talking about those bumpers that have the big tubes that shoot up off the front. On some of those, they pop up here and they'll be right in the line of sight for that TSS sensor. You know, I had somebody comment or ask me a question a while back about that sensor. They had put a bull bar on the front, one of those bars that kind of comes up, goes across and goes down, and they were having TSS sensor errors. They were even told by the manufacturer that it wouldn't be a problem. Well, to me, it was quite obvious. You've put that bar up in front of that sensor, and now you're having issues. They ended up scrapping it, taking it off, because there's no way you can get around that unless you disable the sensor, of course. Next up, lead time. You know, this is particularly important right now. If you're like me, when you decide to pull the trigger and get something new for the truck, like a new front bumper, you want to get it as quick as possible. Well, I've heard lead times out there, and some of the sites even state it, as long as 6 months. Because nobody makes anything in advance anymore. Everything is just in time. Makes sense for the supplier, the manufacturer, because they don't have all that inventory sitting around with their money tied up. But that means we have to wait longer. So if you're not tolerant to that, you probably ought to make sure that anybody that you're talking to actually has the bumper in stock, or will give you an accurate lead time as to how long it's going to take. Pay attention to those comments, little review sections that a lot of these sites have. People will tell you if they had to wait some long time, or maybe they had problems or anything that might have delayed delivery of the product. You'll know if you look at those sections. Number 5, what kind of finish? Are you getting a finished product? In other words, is it painted, and how did they do it? Is it powder coated? Does it have a rough kind of bedliner type finish? Is it just a cheapo smooth finish? You know, I have a great example of that on a bumper, two bumpers I had put on the Jeeps. My wife's is a Mopar bumper. This has a nice finish on it, no issues with it. The one I put on my Jeep is a knockoff, came from China. This thing has a horrible finish on it. The paint actually bubbled here on the winch plate cover. I had to go ahead and repaint that. There were some scratches, some nicks, just a lot of imperfections in that bumper. Very disappointing for me, but I did go the cheaper route, and I should have been aware of that before I bought it. Number 6, tow hooks. Are you looking for something that you can use as a recovery point in that bumper, something that's built in? You know, my buddy Randall, he put a new bumper on the front of his Jeep Mojave, and his actually has built-in pretty substantial areas where he could put D-rings used as recovery points. That's something that you have to consider if you're going to put a new bumper on the front of your Toyota Tacoma. If that's important to you, make sure that that bumper you're looking at comes with them. Number 7, lighting. Are you going to add, or are you looking to add additional lighting to that bumper? Maybe a ditch light kind of a thing, maybe a fog light, maybe the old style KC round lights. Well, obviously it's going to have mounting points if you're looking to do that. The last thing you want to do is get a bumper and then have to drill holes in it so that you can add lighting to it. Make sure that you consider lighting before you go ahead and drop your credit card. Number 8, the last point I want to make, is there room for a winch? If you want to add a winch, you know, if you're a big time off-roader, you're probably going to want to add a winch later on, maybe right away. I'll use the Jeep as an example again. This one comes with an area to add a winch. Take these bolts out, the plate drops out, and you can mount a winch down here below. Make sure that if you're doing that, that it actually comes with a winch plate. This one, my wife's, did not come with a winch plate. The benefit to my knockoff, it was included in the price, which was about almost a third the price of hers. It did come with a winch plate. You might be able to see it right down in here. So I would just have to remove this plate and go ahead and mount the winch under there if I wanted one. If you don't have it, you're going to have to rip that bumper off later down the road and add a winch plate so that you can put a winch down there. Anyway, these are just a few new Toyota Tacoma front bumper considerations. Things to think about before you go ahead and buy that new bumper and then are disappointed, maybe even have to buy another one down the road because it won't accommodate what you want to do. Leave a comment, let me know. Ever bought one and then discovered it wasn't exactly what you were hoping it would be? I'd be curious to know. Also, once again, real quick, if you didn't in the beginning, make sure you smash that subscribe button and click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. I do have 2 additional channels. Robmotive JT, all about the Jeep Gladiator out there with a little bit of Wrangler content thrown in. And Robmotive FST, all about full-size trucks, for now. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? Thanks for watching. Stay knowledgeable out there. Bye.